Chapter 9 Inspiration. All afternoon, Claudie tried to find a story. She thought about stories as she floated beside Nina in the shallow end of the Harlem YWCA pool. She thought about stories as she rode her scooter through the neighborhood and as she took Dizzy Dot for a walk. At the park, she lounged in the grass with her notebook spread open in her lap. When Nina and Jody chased Dizzy around the trees, Claudie ran through all the options. She brought along her newest issue of the Brownies book for inspiration, and she thought about its stories of great historical figures. Nina flopped on the grass beside Claudie. "Any ideas yet?" she asked. "I was thinking about writing a sketch about my favorite heroes," Claudie replied. "I don't know," Nina said. "It sort of sounds like school." Nina flipped to another page in the Brownies book. She hated history lessons. She grew bored as soon as the teacher scribbled some long-ago date on the chalkboard. But Claudie liked learning about history. She was always curious to learn about how life came to be the way it was. You could learn a lot by asking about a place or a person's past. She had already learned plenty about the Borders by asking what had brought them to Harlem. Besides, if you understood how life had come to be, you could also imagine how it might someday be different. Better even. Then again, Gwen had told her that art was about taking risks, and as much as she liked history, she had to admit that writing her own version of the Brownies book was not exactly a risk. Jody ran over with Dizzy close on his heels. He sat down next to the girls. He held out his hand so Dizzy couldn't shake it. "What do you think I should write?" Claudie asked her brother. "Easy," Jody said. "I'd write about the Hellfighters." He twirled his finger, trying to coax Dizzy to do a little spin. He was trying to teach the dogs tricks as his own contribution to the variety show. "What about them?" Claudie asked. "You could write about Henry Johnson," Jody said. "He fought off 40 Germans. Look!" He flipped to a page in the Brownies book featuring a picture of Henry Johnson. Claudie was impressed by Henry Johnson's bravery, of course, but she didn't know if she could write a sketch about the war. To write about something, you had to be able to imagine it. Whenever she tried to picture the war, she could only see Daddy holed up in a trench, and she did not like to think about that at all. Claudie sighed, setting aside the book. There had to be other things to write about besides war. The Hellfighters were heroes. But maybe you didn't have to write about people who had done extraordinary things. Maybe you could tell stories about ordinary people too. She thought about the writers who gathered at the cafe across from Angelo's. They always sat drinking black coffee, piles of books stacked beside them. Their notebooks splayed open, pens whizzing across the pages. Claudie wanted to ask them questions, like where did their ideas come from? How did they know if their stories were any good? How could they bear to show their writing to anyone else? But she was too shy to talk to them. Besides, she wasn't a writer. Not really. She just had her puppet shows and a few ideas she'd jotted in her notebook. But maybe someday, she thought, she could become one of them. It was the day before Mama's trip to Georgia, and Claudie's variety show was beginning to come together. She'd set the show date for 1 week after her mother returned from Georgia, just before the back rent was due. She recruited performers, and she'd even found a space to rehearse. Nina's father belonged to the Elks Lodge, and the performers could rehearse in the basement, as long as they left the space exactly as they'd found it. Thank you very much. Claudie would have felt good about the show, if not for one lingering problem. She still hadn't written her sketch, so she decided to ask for help from the person who had gotten her into the situation in the first place. Gwen shared studio space with two painters. The studio was more of an attic above a laundromat, tiny and cramped with easels lining the walls. When Claudie arrived, Gwen looked surprised. "How is your sketch coming along?" she asked. "I'm stuck," Claudie admitted. "How am I supposed to know what to write about?" "Maybe you're thinking too hard about it," Gwen replied. "Let's try this." The painter set a stool in front of an easel holding a blank sheet of paper. She showed Claudie how to prepare her brushes, how to mix colors, how to practice strokes. "When I was little," Gwen said, dragging her brush across the paper, "I used to sneak off to art museums to study the paintings. I'd stand as close as I could so I could count the brush strokes. One Christmas, my mama gave me a watercolor set and I was off to the races. I spent plenty of summer afternoons painting whatever I saw around me." Gwen set a bowl of fruit on a table and Claudie began painting. She liked watching the colors swirl on the paper, but she was no good at painting anything from life. Instead of fruit on her paper, all she saw were a bunch of colorful blobs. She must have looked discouraged because Gwen patted her on the shoulder. "Not bad," she said. "It's awful," Claudie said. "It's your first try," Gwen said. "Don't worry about what it looks like. The important thing is noticing. What do you see when you look at the bowl? What are you observing? That's the hardest part of being an artist, noticing what's around you." Claudie stood next to Gwen as her brush glided over the paper. Gwen was painting a bunch of lilies in a vase, and Claudie watched, awestruck, as the bouquet bloomed. "Your painting is so beautiful." "But I still feel stuck," Claudie said. "Well, you have to find your inspiration," Gwen said. "Take a walk. Go someplace different. That's what I do when I don't know what to paint. It helps to see something new." I welcome reading from this book tonight. She walked by bakeries and cafes and grocery stores. She passed corner musicians and mothers pushing baby carriages and stray dogs chasing each other in quick circles. She wanted to tell a story about Harlem that would capture this exact feeling of standing on a crowded, busy street. The way she felt at the Hellfighters Parade, as if she were invisible, yet part of a community at the same time. But maybe she would never be able to. Maybe, though, she wasn't like the Borders, brimming with artistic talent. Maybe there really was nothing special about her at all. After dinner, Claudie asked her mother what she did when she didn't know what to write. Mama said. She was kneeling in front of her open suitcase packing for her trip. Claudie sat at the foot of her parents' bed, her legs swinging off the edge. She hated watching her mother pack. It was another reminder that Mama would be gone for 2 weeks. And Mama had been busy enough leading up to the trip. She was writing an article about the NAACP's anti-lynching campaign. In addition to her reporting, she started tutoring neighborhood children in reading and writing in order to earn extra cash. Hi, welcome. Reading from this book tonight. Between both jobs, Claudie felt as if she barely saw her mother anymore. For the past few nights, Claudie was asleep before Mama even came home. "What do you do?" Claudie repeated. "When you don't know what to write?" "Oh," Mama said. She leaned back on her heels thinking. "I suppose I talk to folks." "Talk?" Claudie said. "How does talking help you with writing?" Claudie felt as if all she had done was talk. She had asked her friends what they thought she ought to write about, and everyone had offered different suggestions. Should she write about the Hellfighters? What about the Lincoln Giants? Could she write about Selma's traveling show or Porter's band? Should she write about great heroes or the ordinary people in Harlem, the neighbors who made Harlem home? She talked to everyone she could think of, and she didn't have a clear idea on what she ought to write. Well, sometimes someone knows information that I don't, Mama said. Other times, talking through an idea helps me see it differently. We never write alone, Claudie. I used to think that writing an article was like standing on a box in the middle of the street and shouting at the top of my lungs. But it's a conversation, really. When we write, we're talking to the people we care about. You understand? I think so, Claudie said. She loved how passionately her mother talked about writing. She wanted to feel that same passion too, the sense that she was doing exactly what she had been born to do. But maybe she wouldn't feel passionate until she had something that she wanted to say. How would she discover what that was? Claudie thought suddenly of Gwen's advice earlier that afternoon. Go someplace different, maybe, Claudie realized. That was what gave all the boarders their spark. Each of them had come to Harlem from somewhere else. Selma and Porter and Gwen, Miss Amelia, and Mama and Daddy too. Maybe experiencing a new place could help you discover the talent hiding inside of you. The boarders had all come to Harlem to be artists. Maybe if she left Harlem, Claudie could finally find the stories she wanted to tell. No, the stories she needed to tell. Mama, Claudie said, trying to sound as firm as she could. I want to come with you to Georgia. Mama sighed, slipping a dress in her suitcase. I know, Mama said, but I told you, when you're older. But Mama, Claudie said, I need to go to Georgia. All summer, I've learned how everyone ended up in Harlem. Everyone's got a story except for me. And maybe that's what's missing. That's why I don't know what to write about. I want to learn where you came from, where I came from. You said that we never write alone. I think that's true, and that each person is part of a much larger story. I want to understand my story. Until I do, I won't be able to write a sketch and save the boarding house. Claudie had never spoken words so true, or pushed back so firmly after her mother had told her no. For a second, she wondered if Mama was upset. She was so quiet, still kneeling over her open suitcase, that Mama said, You know, I left Georgia for a reason. It's still hard for me to go back. But maybe you're right. Maybe you are ready to learn where you come from. Claudie squealed and nearly fell off the bed. Really? She said. Mama smothered a smile. Listen, she said. Shellman is a colored town, but it's not like Harlem. The South is different. They got rules we gotta follow. Her mother's voice was serious, but Claudie was too excited to care. She was already imagining the journey ahead, a long and exciting adventure where she would see a new world out the window of an automobile. Georgia and the family farm and Grandma's, her cousins. You understand, right? Mama said. You'll mind me? Yes, Mama, Claudie said. Of course. Can I go back? Her mother laughed. Just hold on, she said. I want to check with your father first. Hi, welcome. I'm reading from this book. That night, when Daddy came home, Claudie waited breathlessly as they discussed. When Mama entered Claudie's room with an empty suitcase, Claudie nearly leapt off her bed. As her mother helped her pack, Claudie imagined all the boarders setting out on similar journeys. Selma tucking her fur wrap into her trunk, Porter clutching his cornet as he boarded a train, and Gwen toting paintbrushes rattling in their case. Miss Amelia, climbing aboard a ship, unaware that she was leaving her beloved island forever. Claudie knew she would miss Daddy and Jody and everyone at Miss Amelia's while she was gone. But she was thrilled to finally go on an adventure herself. She knew, even then, that she would come back changed somehow. Mama neatly folded her clothes into Claudie's suitcase, and when she began to shut it, Claudie remembered one final thing. She sprang up from the floor. "What is it?" Mama asked. "This," Claudie said. She held out the maroon notebook her mother had given her. Mama smiled. Claudie slipped the notebook into the suitcase, already imagining the stories that would live inside.